As I promised at the end of part one about cutting the right expenses the right way, we had talked about there were 5 overall, and I've covered a couple of those at this point. So now I'm going to give you the remaining 3 of those 5. I'm going to share more about this in this part 2 version here. So the remaining 3. Number 3 is that inventory at your shop is an overload and out of control. Don't freak out, but that's pretty normal. When I go to a shop, that's what I see. And it happens because you start to think, well, I should have this on the shelf, or this should be on the truck. And pretty soon you're loaded up with dead inventory, which is just money you can't convert. And these expenses of having to store it, stock it, or worse yet, where it disappears on you because you don't have control, those are expenses that can shoot right out of sight on you. So getting control of your inventory, and there are a lot of great ways to do that. But one of the things to remember is we are not in the inventory business. To me, it costs money because it's sitting on the shelf, and this could be traded off, this excess inventory, if you do what I call exit the warehouse, where you partner up with a really good supply house vendor where they are the ones that are in charge of it. But we have to take control of the space. If everybody can go in and reach and grab any part they want, you're never going to get control. That's really one of the things is I always start off with that. And it's, again, being very clear about what I must have and what would be nice to have. So when I talk about the trucks, for instance, I usually recommend that you have about 80% of what you need for 80% of the calls you go to. You're never going to have 100%. You could drive up with a tractor trailer, you still wouldn't be able to do that. It's all flawed thinking that we're in the supply house business. And another one that is, well, I'll get a great deal if I buy it all in bulk. No, you won't. That's money that's sitting dead on your shelf. And so you have to also go through and decide what is dead stock and see if you can trade it off for credits so that you can turn that into money. And the best thing, again, is exit the warehouse with a good partner that helps you do this. You need to get a control of all of what you're going to stock in-house, minimums and maximums, and on your trucks, same way, mins and max, what gets stocked on the truck. This is how I've been able to help companies take control and handle this big expense. It does, again, require not everybody can go inside to the candy store and help themselves. It also requires that you get your truck standardly stocked so that no matter what truck it is, you can jump in and know whether it's min or max are being adhered to. Number 4 is unnecessary overtime for techs whenever they're doing service tech or install work. Here's what you need to know. Our businesses are overtime. There's going to be times where you need to do it. I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about unnecessary overtime. So somebody needs to be watching overtime on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis and a yearly basis to see whether or not we are staying on track. But it can be easily gotten out of hand if there aren't things like them checking in every day to tell you and get authorized permission from you to be able to stay and do overtime. That's one of the ways that it happens. If nobody's watching billable hour efficiency, which just means you can bring me 4 billable hours, you work 8 hours. I paid you for 8 hours. That's a 50% efficiency. That's pretty standard in the industry, believe it or not, especially when it comes to service. Now there's higher billable efficiency on install because you just drive to one job, stay there, there isn't as much involved. But really knowing billable hour efficiency and watching it like a hawk is really, really important to be careful about the billed hours versus the hours you paid. What is problematic is the excessive callback ratio too, which means if I ran to 100 calls, how many of those would come back? And a good rule of thumb is if I ran to 100 calls, 4 of them would come back for all various reasons. Parts problem, education problem, things of that nature that happened, mistakes happen. And so the good rule of thumb, again, is this 4%. And the lower we can make it, the better. You will not eliminate it. You can plan this actually into your budgeting. So put it as a line item is a really good way to do it. The other way this gets out of hand is your dispatchers are not paying attention to where everybody is. They're not getting the calls set up. They're not watching what I call windshield time, where they're stuck in their trucks and they can't go where they need to do. GPS, of course, today makes this something that should not be a problem. So they have to pay attention to those things. It's also something that is, in my opinion, better handled by having shift work, which means 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is normal service. and having your crews start in a staggered shift so that we can address that people come home at the end of the day and they are your best customers. Two people going off to work, our ability to run calls after 4 o'clock as normal really makes a big difference. And this rotating shift has been a big windfall for all the companies that I've worked with. For installers, it starts with whoever sold that big job needs to do a great job of explaining to the installer what they have in the way of time and material so that they can bring that job time material, and they both have an incentive for happening and making that clear. Usually it's broken down in communication, so the better they're prepared, the better they do a handoff, things will go better. This helps them bring the job in what I call actual labor versus what they originally projected in terms of the labor. And planning a good communication is always at the key of it. So number 5 is mismanaged marketing expenses. Now, marketing is the key to any company going and growing and staying in business. And so I'm not advocating cutting marketing expenses as the first thing that you would go to, but there are times that you do need to take a scalpel to it. The goal is not to take a hatchet. So the key is having a marketing plan in place that is in writing, and it covers these things. The marketing budget is a percentage of sales. Just so a rule of thumb is 4% of your total sales means that you're just going to try and replace customers that quit, unhappy with you, they die, they leave, or whatever. They're not customers anymore, so you have to do that. And sales begins to become aggressive when you're figuring a marketing expense of about 10% of your total sales. It can go higher than that depending on your goals. The next thing to be aware of is marketing allocation. And I like to focus on 3 key marketing drivers. There's a billion ways to go to market, but what's going to get the majority of your money? And making sure that you're paying attention to that. And the marketing calendar is a place where people fall down. They're not proactively marketing through the year. So they end up with, when they're crazy busy and they can't run the calls, and when they're slow, nothing's going on in terms of marketing to make that phone ring. So you need to watch how you cut your expenses. And it might mean working with lower cost things to do. So acquisition, believe it or not, is a very low cost way. You can buy somebody's phone number and pay them when it converts. You can do a lot of things with that are really, really cheap, because instead of a wish that somebody will call you, you have people that are trained to call. Referral business is one of the best things you can do with other contractors who don't compete with you. You want to be able to do these kinds of things. And if necessary, great book, Jake Conrad Levinson writes Guerrilla Marketing. You can still, by the way, go door to door, and direct mail postcards work really well if you do it the right way. And lastly, you can go knock on doors if it really comes down to that as expense. A well-planned, laser-focused direct mail testimonial pieces are working right now for customers that I have. And so there are a lot of things you need to do. So no matter what you do when it comes to marketing expenses, you need to measure. Otherwise, it's just a guess. So there are 3 key things to measure. The number of calls per lead source. That's the way they got you. 2 is the cost per call per lead source. And the third most important thing is, well, how did it do? Which is return on investment, ROI, which is the total of sales divided by the lead source cost per call. Do what I say here in part 2 and get yourself cutting the right costs the right way.